There's a kind of marriage nobody warns you about. Not the one with side chicks, not the one with secret babies. I'm talking about the marriage where you are the wife, but another woman has already claimed the husband. This is the story of how Tola wore white, signed the papers, said I do, and still discovered that she was the other woman. You know, they say when a deal is too good to be true, you should check the fine print. But in Lagos, when you find a man who is a senior partner, drives a range, and actually listens when you talk, you don't read the fine print. You just sign your name in blood and lace. Tola was 32. She had survived the trenches of Tinder and the God-fearing liars of Instagram. Then came Femi. Femi was a dream wrapped in a bespoke agbada. He called her Iyawomi, my wife. He was the kind of man who would send flowers to her office in Lekki just because the sun reminded him of her smile. But every Sunday, like clockwork, Femi would vanish. I'm going to see Mama in Surulere, he'd say, kissing Tola's forehead. Tola thought it was beautiful. She thought she was dating a man who honored women. She didn't realize she was actually marrying a man who was still being refilled by his mother every 7 days. The wedding was the talk of the town. Tola's lace was so heavily beaded she could barely breathe, but she didn't care. She was the queen. But then came the advice. Mama Femi stood up. She wasn't wearing the soft, smiling face of a mother-in-law. She wore her gele like a crown of thorns. She took the microphone and the hall went silent. She didn't look at Femi. She looked directly into Tola's soul.
Tola, I have spent 35 years cooking this meat. I seasoned him with my sweat. Today, I am giving you the plate. But never forget, I am the one who holds the recipe.
The hall went quiet for a second. Then people laughed it off as Mommy's joke. Tola laughed too. She didn't realize it was a declaration of war. 3 weeks in, the honeymoon glow was still on Tola's skin. She came home at 7 p.m., exhausted from a board meeting, craving the scent of her Jo Malone vanilla candles and the quiet of her sanctuary. She opened the door, and the smell hit her like a physical blow. It wasn't vanilla. It was Iru, pungent, fermented, aggressive locust beans. It had stained the air, the curtains, the very soul of the house. Tola walked into her kitchen with the marble countertops she had picked out herself. And there was Mama Femi. She wasn't wearing a guest apron. She was barefoot, her wrapper tied firmly around her waist like a woman going to war. Mama, you are here? Tola's heart was drumming a frantic rhythm. Mama didn't even look up from the steaming pot of ayamase. Tola, welcome. Femi called me. He said he was feeling a bit weak. I told him it's because of all that bird food you've been feeding him, that salad and grilled chicken. A man needs heavy food to be a man. I used the spare key he gave me. I've cleaned the house too. Tola looked at her pantry. Her organic olive oil and imported pasta had been shoved into a dark corner. In their place sat giant dripping tubs of red palm oil and a bag of stockfish that smelled like the deep sea. I used the spare key Femi gave me, Mama continued, tasting the stew with Tola's favorite silver spoon. And I did your laundry. Why are you using that chemical detergent on his shirts? It's too harsh. I bought the local white soap. It's what I used since he was a baby. He likes the smell of home, not a French perfume shop. At the table sat Femi, the Oloriebi, the big boy. He was already eating, sweat beads on his forehead, a look of pure primal satisfaction on his face. He didn't look at Tola. He just said, Babe, thank God Mama came. I didn't want to tell you, but I've been starving. In that moment, the marble floors felt like ice. Tola realized she wasn't the wife, she was the tenant. The breaking point. It wasn't the food or the curtains. It was the day Tola found Mama Femi in their bedroom, the inner chamber, rearranging Femi's underwear drawer. "Mama," Tola said, her voice trembling with a mix of respect and the urge to scream. "Mama, why are you in our bedroom?" Mama didn't even look up. She just folded a pair of boxers with military precision and said, "Our bedroom, Tola." "I carried this boy 9 months. I bathed him when he couldn't even wipe his own nose. If I can see his nakedness at 1 day old, what is a drawer at 32? I'm just making sure his whites stay white. You, on the other hand, you've been washing them with his blue jeans. Is that what they taught you at the university?" Tola realized then that she hadn't just married Femi, she had been recruited as a domestic assistant for Mama Femi's favorite project. The kitchen was the border, but the bedroom was the front line. Tuesday night, 11:30 p.m. The AC was humming, the lights were low, and Tola was finally feeling like a wife again. She and Femi were whispering, laughing, the first time they had been alone in days. Creak, the door opened. No knock, no warning. Mama Femi walked in. She was carrying a small brown bottle of Ori and a thick duvet. "The AC is too high," Mama snapped, walking straight to Femi's side of the bed. She didn't even acknowledge Tola's half-naked state. "Femi, I heard you sneeze in the hallway. You want to get pneumonia. Sit up." Tola sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. "Mama, this is our bedroom. It's nearly midnight." Mama ignored her. She sat on the edge of the bed, Tola's bed, and poured the pungent oil into her palms. She began to rub Femi's chest, her movements rhythmic and practiced. Femi, the man who commanded boardrooms, leaned back and closed his eyes like a toddler. "Mama, please," Tola's voice was shaking. "Femi, tell her, this is too much." Femi opened one eye and looked at Tola with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Tola, don't be disrespectful. It's just oil. She's worried about my chest. Just let her finish, then we can sleep. Don't make a scene." Mama Femi looked over her shoulder, a small triumphant smile playing on her lips. "I'm staying in the recliner tonight," she whispered, "just to monitor his breathing. You can sleep, junior wife. I've got him from here." Tola didn't scream. She didn't throw the oil. She simply stood up, took her pillow and walked out. As she stood in the dark hallway, she realized the truth. She wasn't fighting a mother-in-law. She was fighting a previous marriage. Femi had been wedded to his mother's approval long before he ever saw Tola in her white dress. In that house, Tola was the other woman. She was the side chick with a wedding ring. The senior wife didn't need a marriage certificate. She had 35 years of shared DNA and a spare key to his psyche. Most women would have packed a suitcase. Most women would have called their own mother crying. But Tola, as she stood in that cold hallway, something clicked in her. She remembered the shege she had seen in the Lagos dating pool. She remembered the 3 years of talking stages that led nowhere. The men who were already married. The men who wanted a submissive doll. She had fought too hard to find a good man to let a woman in a high headgear take him back to the womb. Tola didn't go to the guest room to sleep. She went there to plan. She realized that Mama Femi didn't have a spare key to the house. She had a spare key to Femi's guilt, and it was time to change the locks. You see, Mama Femi made one big mistake. She forgot who she was dealing with. Tola didn't spend 7 years navigating the shege Lagos dating, the ghosting, the "I'm engaged but not really" men, the investors who only invest in lies, to just give up her home. She had paid her dues in the trenches of Ikoyi clubs and Lagos heartbreak. Tola looked at her wedding ring and then at the guest room door. She whispered to herself, "I didn't survive Lagos to be defeated by a woman whose greatest achievement is a 1980s egusi recipe. Game on."
In Nigerian marriage, there's no such thing as a room enough for 2 women calling the shots in the kitchen. the kitchen became a war zone. One Tuesday, Tola left her fintech office at 3 p.m. She didn't tell Femi. She walked into her kitchen and found Mama Femi already there, pounding yam like she was preparing for an Olympic event. Tola didn't say good afternoon. She just dropped her designer bag, tied her wrapper over her silk trousers, and turned on the second burner. The air was thick. On the left, the heavy fermented scent of Mama's ayamase. On the right, the sophisticated garlic-infused aroma of Tola's seafood pasta with white wine sauce. "Tola, what is this?" Mama asked, her nose wrinkling as if she'd smelt a rat. "Are you cooking for cats?" "No, Mama," Tola replied, stirring her shrimp with the precision of a surgeon. "I'm cooking for my husband. A man with a global career needs food that doesn't make him sleep for 6 hours in the afternoon. We have a life to build, not a nap to take." When Femi walked in, the dining table looked like a buffet of confusion. 2 plates, 2 smells, 2 women standing with their arms crossed. Femi sat down, looking like a little boy in the principal's office. He reached for Tola's pasta. The smell of the garlic was calling his soul. But then, it happened. The performance. Mama Femi let out a soft, shaky sigh. She rubbed her wrist. My back, pounding that yam at my age. But anything for my son. Even if I'm not wanted, at least let him know he's not starving on white man's noodles. A single, perfectly timed tear rolled down her cheek. Femi froze. He looked at Tola's delicious pasta, then at his mother's suffering face. He sighed, dropped the fork, and picked up the morsel of pounded yam. Tola didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just smiled. A cold, senior manager smile. She knew the battle was lost, but the war was just starting. Later that night, Femi was in their home office, pretending to check emails. Tola walked in and locked the door. Click. "Femi, look at me," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was the voice she used when a junior analyst messed up a multi-million naira deal. "Femi, please, I'm tired," she said. "No, you're not tired. You're confused," she interrupted, leaning over his desk. "Femi, when we stood at that altar, the priest said, 'Leave and cleave.' He didn't say, 'Leave and keep a spare key under the mat.' I am your wife. I am your partner. I am the woman who is going to build a legacy with you. But you are behaving like a boy who is still waiting for his mother to tell him he's a good boy. Every time you eat that yam, just because she cried, you aren't being a good son, you are being a weak husband." She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a gavel. "I love you, Femi, but I did not get married to be a junior wife in a house I pay half the mortgage for. If you want a mother, go back to Surulere. If you want a wife, then you need to start acting like a head of house, not a guest of honor. Choose now, because the next time a tear falls in that kitchen, it will be the last time you see me in the bedroom." She didn't wait for an answer. She walked out, leaving the air vibrating behind her. For 3 days, the house was a pressure cooker. Mama Femi was hiding Femi's car keys to keep him home. Tola was changing the Wi-Fi password so Mama wouldn't watch her favorite YouTube Yoruba movies. Mama was accidentally shrinking Tola's clothes in the wash. Tola was booking Mama a surprise spa day just to get her out of the house. It peaked when Mama Femi tried to move Femi and Tola's wedding portrait to the storeroom to hang a picture of Femi's christening. The scream that came out of the living room was the final straw. Femi walked in to see his mother clutching her chest and Tola standing her ground, pointing at the door. Femi looked at his mother. He saw the fake tears. He saw the manipulation. Then he looked at Tola. He saw the woman he loved, the woman who was fighting for them. He pulled out his phone. "Femi, what are you doing?" Mama asked, her voice suddenly losing its weak tremor. "Femi, I'm calling Daddy," Femi said firmly. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Enter Papa Femi, a man who looked like he had been enjoying the silence of his house in Surulere and was annoyed it had been interrupted. Mama Femi, pack your bags," Femi said. His voice was steady. It was the voice of a man who had finally found his backbone. "Femi, after all I did." "Mama, I love you," Femi said, stepping toward her but staying by Tola's side. "But you have a husband, and I have a wife. I am ready to start my own family, and I cannot do that while you are trying to be the woman in charge of my house. Tola is the queen here, not junior wife, not the recipe follower, the queen. Go home to your husband, Mama. Let me be one." My people, you should have seen the drama. Mama Femi cried enough tears to fill the third mainland bridge. She called Tola a witch and a Lekki Jezebel. But Tola, she just handed Mama her handbag and waved at the car as it drove off. That night, for the first time in months, the house didn't smell like Iru, it smelled like peace. Tola won. Not because she was mean, but because she realized that sometimes, to save your marriage, you have to be the one to fire the senior wife. She won, not because she was a witch, but also because she refused to be small. She realized that in a Nigerian home, the mother-in-law is only as powerful as the man allows her to be. And once the man finds his backbone, the senior wife has no choice but to go back to her own palace. So, my people, the lesson is simple. A mother-in-law is not the problem. A man without a backbone is. Because no woman can rule a home she was not invited to, unless the man hands her the crown. Marriage isn't about choosing your mother over your wife. It's about understanding the difference between the two and honoring your responsibilities to each. And the day a man finally learns to stand, that is the day peace enters his house.